Before we begin this story, if you're drawn to the dark stories that history tried to erase, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the stories we uncover every day. And let us know in the comments which state you're watching from. We love seeing how far these forgotten stories are reaching. Mary O'Brien was 26 in the spring of 1884 when she met Patrick Sullivan at a church social in central Illinois. For the first time in years, marriage seemed a real possibility, an escape from the exhausting, poorly paid life of domestic service that had been her reality since her Irish immigrant parents died when she was 15. She had spent the next decade working for farm families, earning barely enough to survive, treated with varying degrees of kindness depending on their views of Irish Catholic servants. The thought of remaining unmarried into her 30s, scrubbing floors and cooking for others with no security or independence, was bleak enough that Mary welcomed Patrick's courtship despite his limited means and his admission that he had been married before. His first wife had died in childbirth several years earlier. Patrick was 31, a hired hand saving every dollar to homestead in Nebraska under the Homestead Act, where 5 years of proving a claim could yield 160 acres of free land. In autumn 1884, he proposed. They would marry immediately and move west to file a claim together. Mary accepted with a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew little about him beyond his farming skill and his dream of land ownership, but the alternative, lifelong servitude, was worse. Their December wedding was simple. When Patrick slipped a worn gold band onto her finger, Mary noticed it looked used. He explained it had belonged to his first wife, Elizabeth, who died in 1879, giving birth to a stillborn son. He had kept it as one of his few valuables, and he wanted it to have purpose again rather than remain a memorial. Mary felt uneasy wearing another woman's ring and asked for a new one, but Patrick insisted a new purchase would waste money they needed for homesteading. Practicality won. She agreed, though reservations lingered. Patrick spoke little of Elizabeth. He said her family had opposed the marriage, treating him with contempt, and he had cut contact after her death, wandering for years before settling in Illinois. Mary accepted his grief as private and understandable, as long as it did not affect their life together. In February 1885, they traveled west. The vast Nebraska prairie was both thrilling and daunting for Mary, who had never left settled Illinois. Patrick filed on a quarter section 15 miles north of North Platte in Lincoln County, a spot with a small creek for water and soil good for wheat and corn. The land was raw prairie. Everything had to be built from scratch. Their first home was a dugout carved into a low hill, dark, damp, cramped. Mary longed for even the modest quarters of her servants' days, but Patrick promised a frame cabin soon. Spring and summer brought relentless work. Patrick broke sod and planted, while Mary managed the household in primitive conditions. She discovered she was pregnant that summer, and the combination of heavy labor, poor shelter, and pregnancy made 1885 one of the hardest years of her life. Yet she clung to the dream of land ownership. Small victories, a vegetable garden, a tidier dugout kept her going. The September harvest was modest, but enough to sell grain for $60 after saving seed. They began building the cabin. Emma was born in April 1886, just as the frame house was finished, far better than the dugout for raising a child. The second year went better. Patrick gained skill with the land, Mary adapted to frontier life, and the harvest improved. They added a small barn. Mary became pregnant again in autumn 1886. Daniel arrived in June 1887. By late 1887, they were halfway through the 5-year proving period, confident of success. They had crops, structures, livestock, and a family of 4. Then disaster struck on a rainy November afternoon. Patrick fell from the barn roof while repairing wet, slippery boards. Mary heard the crash, rushed out, and found him motionless, neck broken. He was dead. At 28, Mary was widowed with a 19-month-old daughter and a 5-month-old son, halfway through proving their only path to security. Neighbors helped bury Patrick and brought food, but many urged her to abandon the claim. A widow with toddlers could not farm alone. Mary refused. Leaving would make Patrick's death meaningless and waste their years of labor. Winter deepened the crisis. Food stores ran out. Mary rationed, skipping meals so the children could eat. By early December, they faced starvation. Desperate, she searched Patrick's belongings and found letters from his first marriage. They were from Jacob Thornton to Elizabeth, his sister. Jacob managed a large cattle ranch in southern Nebraska and urged Elizabeth to leave Patrick and return home. The Thorntons were wealthy. They had opposed the marriage because Patrick was poor. After Elizabeth's death, Patrick vanished without telling them where she was buried. Mary realized the ring she wore was Elizabeth Thornton's. Jacob Thornton, ruthless, feared across the territory, might be family through marriage. Perhaps he would help his sister's husband's widow and children. The idea terrified her. His reputation was merciless towards homesteaders and enemies. But with children crying from hunger, pride gave way. Mid-December, she left Emma and Daniel with neighbor Mrs. Henderson and walked 80 miles south through snow and freezing cold. 3 grueling days, 15 to 20 miles daily, sleeping in hay barns or under rocks when she could. Exhausted and half-frozen, she reached the Thornton Ranch late one afternoon. The main house was a grand 2-story stone and timber mansion, outbuildings vast. Ranch hands stared suspiciously. One stopped her. Thornton did not see strangers begging help. Mary insisted, "Tell him Patrick Sullivan's widow is here, wearing Elizabeth's wedding ring, asking for a few minutes." After a long wait in the cold, she was led to Thornton's warm office. He was in his early 50s, stern, authoritative. His voice was brusque. He remembered Patrick as the man who took his sister against family wishes and disappeared after Elizabeth's death. Why help the widow of someone he blamed partly for Elizabeth's suffering? Mary pleaded through tears. She was starving with 2 babies. She walked 3 days because letters showed Jacob was Elizabeth's brother. She asked only enough to survive the winter, not charity. She would work. Don't let children die because of anger towards their father. As she spoke, Thornton noticed the ring. His expression changed. Shock, recognition. He stood, gently took her hand, examined it. This was Elizabeth's. My mother gave it to her in '78. She wore it every day. He asked how Mary had it. She explained Patrick gave it to her, saying it was his first wife's, kept on a chain for years. Thornton sat heavily, struggling with emotion. He had opposed the marriage, believing Elizabeth deserved better. When she died, he searched for Patrick, but never found him. Anger had burned for years. But Patrick keeping the ring, wearing it, then giving it to Mary showed he had loved Elizabeth deeply. Silence stretched. Then Thornton spoke quietly. "Elizabeth would never forgive me if I let her husband's widow and children starve. Your children are connected to her through Patrick. That creates family I must acknowledge." Relief overwhelmed Mary. She nearly collapsed. Thornton ordered a wagon loaded. Flour, pork, beans, dried fruit, blankets, fabric, enough for winter and beyond. Ranch hand Tom Peters drove her home, instructed to assess needs. The return trip took 2 days. Mrs. Henderson was stunned by the supplies. Mary explained the ring's history and Thornton's change of heart. "That ring saved your lives," the neighbor said. Winter became secure. Thornton sent more supplies in January. In February 1888, he visited. Nervous Mary worried about her poor cabin, but he was respectful. Played with the children on the floor. His stern face softened with them. He asked to see Patrick's grave. Standing there, he spoke with emotion. Years of imagined confrontation dissolved. "I'm sorry I judged you, Patrick. Thank you for keeping her ring. It led me here." Back at the cabin, Thornton proposed. His ranch hands would handle plowing, planting, harvesting. Mary would maintain residence and manage the homestead. She hesitated. Unconventional, might raise questions, but accepted. The alternative was failure. Spring 1888 planting was efficient. Neighbors mixed admiration and gossip. Some whispered romance, though Thornton was paternal, old enough to be her father. Mary explained the family tie. Rumors faded over time. Thornton's visits became regular. He told stories of Elizabeth's strong will, defying family for love. Mary understood why Patrick cherished her memory. The children called him Uncle Jacob. Emma ran to greet him. Daniel climbed his lap. Thornton, childless and long resigned to solitude after Elizabeth's death broke his engagement, found grandchildren in them, gifts, stories, affection. Harvests improved. Thornton refused repayment. Family helping family. It brings me satisfaction. By 1889, concerns arose about proving legitimacy since ranch hands did the work. Mary discussed with Thornton, and he assured her the Homestead Act allowed family help. He would testify if needed. Prove-up inspection came February 1890. Inspector Howard Mitchell was thorough, skeptical of Thornton's role. Mary explained honestly: continuous residence, household management, supervision, help from family via Patrick's first marriage, shown by the ring. Thornton arrived and answered firmly: family obligation, no ulterior motive, satisfaction in honoring Elizabeth and bonding with the children. Mitchell approved. Assistance from family was accepted. Residence and cultivation fulfilled. Patent issued March 1990. Land Mary's forever. She visited Patrick's grave. We did it. The children will grow up landowners. Thornton remained close through the 1990s. Help continued. Then local workers hired. Emma married in 1903. At 19, Thornton walked her down the aisle. Daniel learned ranching on Thornton's spread, mentored like an apprentice. Mary passed the ring to Emma at her wedding, explaining its journey, from Elizabeth to Patrick to her, recognized by Thornton, saving their lives. Emma wore it, later gave it to her daughter, a legacy of how one band connected families through tragedy and kindness. Thornton died in 1905 at 70, willing generously to Emma and Daniel, despite distant relatives' objections. Mary grieved like family. She farmed until 1920, age 62, then sold to Daniel and lived with Emma's family. Mary died in 1923 at 65, outliving Patrick by 36 years. In her final days, she held the ring, reflecting on its path, given in 1878, carried through grief, remarriage, desperation, recognition, redemption. The quarter section stayed in the Sullivan family for generations, preserved by Patrick's determination, Mary's courage, and Thornton's choice to honor his sister's memory by aiding the widow who arrived at his door wearing her ring.